Hi friends, I am back for a new episode of Cat Reacts, and I thought in honor of Halloween I would share with you my favorite scary movies. There are others that could have been on this list that you won't see today, and it was really hard to narrow down what needed to be on the list. So I've got some honorable mentions that we'll go through first, and then I'll share some little video trailers that I put together for some of the movies that are on my top all-time favorite scary movies list. I'll preface what we're going to see today by letting you know first that I was raised by parents who were very much into horror and sci-fi, so I know that's a lot of where that came from for me. They were also very fanatic, fundamentalist, religious people. And so there was a lot of fear included in my indoctrination growing up. And so some of the movies that are on the list also touch on that, and that contributed to how and why they were scary for me. But when you can combine horror and sci-fi, those are some of my favorite movies. But I think it's a nice little mix. I hope it'll give you some ideas if there's something you see today that you haven't watched before, to check it out if you are a horror fan. And again, it's spooky season, so it's time for some good scary movies. And these are not in any particular order, although when we get to the video portion of the little trailers I've put together, those do seem to represent kind of the later ones in the list are a little more favorite than maybe some of the earlier ones in the list, but it just depends, I guess, on what kind of a mood I'm in. I'll also say that I haven't been to the movie theater in a long time. I think the last movie I saw in a movie theater was Quantum of the Solace, the James Bond movie. Not big into going to the movies anymore. It's so expensive, and without knowing if I'm really going to like a movie, I don't want to spend that money. And now you can even rent movies that are in theaters through Amazon, or I don't know if Netflix does that also. We don't have Netflix anymore. So you still can see the movie, and I'd rather pay, to sit here in my own home and watch it, and then if I don't like it, it's not as big an expense as going to the movie theater. So some of the movies that we'll talk about today, I did see in the theater, like when they came out. Some of them I've just rented on streaming services, or I've seen them on TV. Some of them I've seen multiple times. Some of them are parts of a franchise of movies, but the ones that I'm going to share with you today are my favorites in the franchise, and usually that's because they were the first ones in the franchise. But let's start with the honorable mentions on the list today, and let me know what you think. So in the comments, let me know if you've seen these movies, if you liked them, if you agree with my take on them. So once we go through the honorable mentions and we start the videos of the movies that are fun, I'll again share with you where I was when I saw it, and kind of just the impact it had on me. And then we'll do some trivia about each of those, because there's a lot that you may not know about the making of the movie or the people in the movie, and that makes it even more fun to me sometimes to learn some of that after I've seen a movie. So without further ado, let's get started. Again, these are honorable mentions, so not videos. I just have like the movie posters for each of these. Amityville Horror, I did see that in the movie theater when it came out. Scream, I saw that in the movie theater when it came out. That was a little bit of a different genre for me, the kind of mix-in of comedy and lighter horror. Beetlejuice, saw that in the movie theater. I'm a big Michael Keaton fan even now. Don't really want to see the new Beetlejuice, but to each his own. Rosemary's Baby. I didn't see this in the movie theater. I think I actually saw it on TV one of the times that it played on TV, and it was after I was an adult. The Exorcist, I think I saw this in the movie theater. I think I did. Well, I think this came out in 1973. I think the whole family went to see it. Us, this I saw on Amazon Prime, Jordan Peele. He makes great movies, y'all. Oh my goodness, there's another one I'll have to think about to tell you about. The Ring, I saw this in the movie theater. This was different for me too. I don't remember all the reasons why I remember thinking it was very different, but good, scary fun. And The Shining. So I did not include that in my video portion of top favorite movies, partly because I just feel like that movie is so iconic. It is on so many people's favorite movies lists, and it just didn't even need to be on there. Not that I was trying to choose movies that were unfamiliar to a lot of people or a little more obscure, but again, just because I think so many people have seen that movie, so many people like that movie, that it is what it is, and I don't feel like I need to give it any more glory than it already has, because it's such an amazing movie. And again, so now not in any particular order, except that I do think the last couple of them are nearer the top of the list. And I'm sure after the video I'm going to think of other ones that I wish I had included on the list. But I hope you enjoy, and let's get rolling. Again, I'm going to share with you some backstory on them, about my personal experience watching the movie, and then we'll do some trivia for each one after you watch the little trailer. Oh, let's see. So I will tell you first before we get started. This first movie, we'll see if you can guess what these are before they play. First movie was released on June 25th of 1976, so I would have been just shy of 14 years old. Saw it in the movie theater, and I do like to tell people that my first movie I ever saw was Dr. No, James Bond, Sean Connery, but I was just a little tiny baby. My parents took me to the movie theater to see that because they were big James Bond fans. This movie stars Gregory Peck, Lee Remick, and a little boy at the time, whose name was Harvey Stevens. Oh, I hated that character. This came out with another batch of movies in the 70s that dealt with some of the same subject matter. And again, because of my background and my parents' issues, it was even more frightening to me than I think it might have been for some people, because I just remember wondering, what if this could really happen? Does this really happen? And it just made it so scary to me. So I present to you, for the first movie in no particular order on my list of all-time favorite scary movies.
If this is the truth, where does it end? 20th Century Fox presents a film of psychological suspense about an occurrence of earth-shaking importance. Gregory Peck, Lee Remick, The Omen.
I was at the hospital, Mr. Thorne, the night your son was born.
When the child was 5 years old, something terrible happened. For generations, the Thornes have been a family of tremendous wealth, position, and power. The perfect marriage of Ambassador Robert Thorne and his wife Catherine.
So it's mother.
I have fears. I've said fears.
What kind of fears?
What is it you're trying to say?
His mother was a...
Look at me, Damien. It's all for you.
There are those who will die for him. There are those who will kill for him. Who is he? What does he want? Where did he come from? And can he be stopped?
So that was The Omen. That was so scary to me. And now let's do some trivia, some Omen trivia. This is just from IMDb, so if you didn't know, you can look up pretty much any recorded thing in history at this point to get details on who was in it, who made it, what it was about, and some little tidbits and trivia things which again is also just really fun to me sometimes after I've seen a movie that I really like to go and learn a little bit more about it. So again, starred Gregory Peck, Lee Remick, Harvey Stevens, was written by David Seltzer. According to at least one biography of Gregory Peck, who had essentially been retired for several years when he quite unexpectedly agreed to make the film, he took the role for just $250,000. That's still a lot of money to some of us, right? But back in the day, because he was a huge star, it was not much money. But he was also guaranteed 10% of the film's box office gross. So when this movie went on to gross more than $60 million in the US alone, it became the highest paid performance of his career. One of the reasons he took the role of a tortured father in this film is because he had not been around when his son Jonathan committed suicide in 1975. So this hit really close to home for him, and maybe made him an even better actor in the film. Charlton Heston, Roy Scheider, Dick Van Dyke, and William Holden all turned down the lead role. So, go figure. The vicious dog that you saw in the little clip, which, I mean, he has more screen time than what you saw there, was nothing like the creature he was supposed to be portraying. He wanted to lick and play with his co-stars rather than threaten them. The movie was originally going to be called The Birthmark, but a good chunk of the film was filmed on location in Italian maternity wards. For the beginning of the movie, when Kathy has the baby, the character Kathy has the baby in Rome, and the crew would put up signs saying, "Filming the birthmark." And the women patients there would complain that they didn't want any mention of birthmarks in their maternity ward for fear of bringing bad luck. So again, let me just tell you, I think this is very common in Catholicism. My dad was raised Catholic. I was baptized in the Catholic Church as a baby, and my grandparents were the most superstitious people I ever knew. So this made total sense to me when I read this, that the women at the hospital at the time when they were filming were worried about it bringing bad luck to have anything to do with something called the birthmark. Go figure. So the crew started, they changed the name on all the signs to Filming the Omen, just as a temporary measure, but that name stuck and that became the name of the movie. Harvey Stevens, who played Damien, the little boy, again, he loved to hate him in that film, was largely chosen for this role from the way he attacked Richard Donner, the director, during auditions. Donner asked all the little boys to come at him as if they were attacking Catherine Thorne. So he was like, Donner was playing the part of the mom, Catherine Thorne, and there's a church wedding scene in this movie, and so Donner said to the little boys, "You come get me like you're attacking me, like you're attacking Catherine." Stevens screamed and clawed at Donner's face and kicked him in the groin during his audition. Donner whipped the kid off him, ordered the kid's blonde hair dyed black, and cast him as Damien. Richard Donner said he feared for his life during the filming of the movie because of the omen curse. He literally feared the devil or other demonic forces would strike him down during the production, but he soldiered on anyway. It should be noted that not only was Donner not killed during The Omen, but the film was very lucky for him. Its success opened the door for him to direct Superman in 1978, which was a blockbuster success, and later The Goonies in 1985. I'm sure you guys have heard of both of those, and the Lethal Weapon series. There were also a handful of other blockbusters that he directed, so there was nothing to that omen curse. Of course, the Vatican was very opposed to the making of the film, claiming it was being made solely toward ends absolutely consumeristic and economical. Has there ever been a movie made that wasn't at least partially focused on that? I would kind of think that the majority of movies made are for consumeristic and economical reasons. I mean, there's the art form, I get it, I'm not discounting that, but how silly. All right, next up, oh yeah, this one was super scary for me. Oh yeah, I was going to tell you first. I like to do the little backstory first and see if you can kind of guess what the movie was. So this movie was released on August 21st of 1981 So this was right after I graduated from high school, graduated in May of 1981. And one of the scenes in particular that I don't think you can see it, there's part of that scene in this little trailer thing I put together, but I don't think they show this particular part. But one of the scenes that stuck with me, still sticks with me, is that there's a part where there's cars crashing and running into buildings and, you know, into each other, and a body gets run over. Obviously, it's not a real person. Duh. I know that. I knew that at the time, but I'd never seen that in a movie, and so it was horrifying to me. This whole movie just had so many moments where you're just watching with your eyes big and your jaw dropped, and so that scene was, again, brand new to me. There weren't blood and guts when that particular thing happened, but it just that thought alone was just horrible to me. Can you tell? Do you know what it is yet? All right, I just muted that because I didn't want to get any more copyright strikes than I might already get. I'm thinking since I'm doing a review, it won't come.
I heard that. What was it? Could be a lot of things. Yeah? A coyote.
What it is?
There aren't any
I said it
coyotes
at the
in
beginning.
I'm going to the police! Jack was right!
Jack is dead!
Jack is dead and 6 people are dead! There's gonna be a full moon tonight! I'm going to the cops!
You can't let them go. Should the world know our business? It's murder then. Then murder it is.
I'm a werewolf.
A werewolf.
Yes, love?
A naked American man stole my balloons.
What?
Oh my goodness. So now let's do a little trivia on An American Werewolf in London. Unlike most motion pictures, this starred David Naughton, Griffin Dunne, Jenny Agutter, and John Landis was the writer. So John Landis, I think, also directed the movie or produced the movie. Unlike most motion pictures, it was filmed in sequence. So I'm sure we're all aware that a lot of movies are not filmed in the order that the scenes are going to happen in the movie for various reasons. But this one was filmed in sequence. I think I also read that part of that was because the special effects team, the makeup guys and stuff, needed time to build the prosthetics and things that were going to be used for the werewolf and for turning David Naughton into the werewolf. And as of 2024, this is the only movie for which John Landis, or the only John Landis movie that has won an Academy Award. And I think it was for like the makeup or special effects. David Naughton was reportedly cast because John Landis had seen him in a television commercial for Dr. Pepper. You guys remember him now? However, Naughton was later let go by Dr. Pepper because of his nude scenes in the film. So there's the scene where he's running through the zoo naked because he just woke up, I guess, from being a werewolf. In recalling the zoo scene, David said, "As for running naked around London Zoo, in the scene where I'm in the wolf cage, the only reassurance I had was that the wolves had just been fed. But the handlers still said there were to be no loud noises or fast moves." So he said, "This will just be one take, so start rolling those cameras." Well, they were supposed to be done before the zoo opened, but they overran. It took longer than they thought. And at one point, David says, "I looked up and said, 'Wow, why have you got all those extras over there?' And the production crew said, 'They're not extras, the zoo is open.'" Yikes. So there's a cat on a window ledge at some point in the movie that was prompted to hiss at David by holding another cat up to his face. It works every time. Michael Jackson was so bowled over by this movie, most especially by the makeup and visual effects, he insisted on hiring the responsible personnel for his planned music video the Thriller. When John Landis agreed to direct his first music video, he brought on board his foremost werewolf crew. And that's how Thriller came to be. Polygram, so the studio that produced the movie, their executives hoped that John Landis would cast Dan Aykroyd in the role of David and John Belushi as Jack. Can't see that at all. If you've seen this movie, I'm sure you agree. If you haven't seen this movie, but now you know what it's like and what it's about, even just based on the little trailer I just showed, how would that make any sense to anybody? But John Landis refused, and he wanted to use new faces because Belushi and Aykroyd were busy working on the movie Neighbors, and because he wanted it to seem more realistic by having less known or unknown actors in it. John Landis's idea of the transformation was a visceral one. He wanted to portray the pain that is a direct consequence of such a significant bodily mutation over a short period of time. Quote, I always thought if your body is going to go through such a huge change, it's going to hurt. I wanted it to be painful. When it came to the audience, he wanted to evoke different emotions in the spectators. The transformation had to be horrifying, but also morbidly funny. Funny peculiar and funny ha-ha, tragic, raw, terrible, tortuous, grotesque, all of these things, yet fascinating rather than repulsive. And I didn't show that scene of David Naughton's character mutating into the wolf, but yeah, it was, again, jaw-dropping. So that's number 2. Out of, I think I have 8 on the list. Again, not that it's number 2 on the list. It's just the second one we're going to see today. This next one, so let me tell you a little bit about it before I run the little trailer. Oh, I forgot to put when this movie came out. It was from 2009. I think it was in the fall of 2009. This movie came out, and it was not the first I had seen in this genre. I had already become a fan of this genre because of another movie we're going to see a little down the road, so a little more favorite than this one. But these seem so real to me. And, oh yeah, I think I have it on this other little document when it came out. Yes, so this next movie was released October 26th of 2009. I didn't see it in the theater, I don't think. It might be among the very few of the ones that have the video trailers that I didn't see in a theater. Well, one was before I was born, so I know I didn't see that. But I've always been interested, again, in the spirit world and ghosts and the afterlife and good and evil and supernatural type stuff. Partly, again, because of how I was raised, but partly just because that's interesting and entertaining to me. But this was very scary to me, again, because these kind of movies seem very real to me. I know some people hate them, but I really feel like I'm more immersed in the movie. This is a found footage movie, so it was very appealing to me because, again, I'd already gotten hooked on the found footage concept because of a movie we're going to see later. And I think it's just beautifully creepy. This movie is... I never know how to time the gaps. Paranormal Activity, the original one.
It's gonna film, whatever happens. Hopefully, once we get on camera, we can figure out what's going on, and then react appropriately.
Hi! Is that what I think it is?
Do you know of any tricks to make this stuff happen?
Whatever's happening is already here.
I think we're gonna have a very interesting time capturing whatever is occurring or is not occurring. Can I get a little striptease?
There's camera on us now.
Windows are locked, doors are locked, alarm is on.
Something's here. I feel it breathing on me. Hey, please, people on your boat.
Do you hear that? Show yourself!
Oh, that's good stuff there. So again, let me know in the comments if you've seen any of these, what you thought of them. Are you a found footage fan? All right, so let's do a little trivia on Paranormal Activity. It starred Katie Featherston and Michael Sloat. That's the wife and husband in the movie. The writer was Oren Peli. And again, these people were cast because they were not famous actors. And I do believe that does make it seem more real when you see a movie that, you know, doesn't have someone in it that you've seen, you know, play Batman and play the president, play God and play, you know, just when you already associate them with so many other things, I don't know if it has the same level of believability. So these actors were not given scripts. They were just given guidelines on how to behave or what to discuss in their scenes. That's true for a lot of found footage movies. Again, I think that's part of what makes it seem realistic, is because it's just people talking off the cuff. You know, I mean, they know what the story is, so they react like they would react if that was a real story. It was filmed in 10 days with a home digital camera. Paramount acquired the U.S. rights for $350,000. The film went on to make $193 million worldwide, making it the second most profitable film ever made based on a return of investment. So based on what it cost to make it. The first most profitable movie, so this was the second most profitable based on return of investment. The first one is the one we're going to see a little bit down the road, which only cost $22,000 to make and then made $240.5 million worldwide. You got any guesses on what that one is yet? It was filmed in the writer's home, Oren Peli's home, and during the weekend, I guess maybe opening weekend, so during a weekend in October of 2009, it reached number 4 at the U.S. box office, even though it was only playing in 160 theaters in the country. So that was the fewest number of theaters for a top 5 film since box office data was regularly tracked starting in the 1980s. It was filmed in the U.S. for $15,000, and again, it grossed $193 million worldwide, $9.1 million in its first week in the U.S. So it broke the record of the highest grossing weekend ever for a movie playing in less than 200 theaters. Can y'all follow that equation? Okay, and so this next movie, I remember seeing this one in the theater, and this was with a group of friends. So this movie was released May 9th of 1980. A lot of these I saw pretty soon after they released, either opening weekend or pretty soon after, because there was just a lot of hype, and I did enjoy going to the movies back in the day. So this was released on May 9th of 1980, and it's among the few movies I can think of that there really were times where I felt like I wanted to cover my eyes. I didn't want to see what was about to happen. It was just gory enough. I think we'll get to some trivia that there were some controversies from the Rating Association and other directors and stuff about how it shouldn't be so gory. And then it's part of a franchise, so the sequels were not quite as gory as this one, but man, it was perfect for the time. It was released May of 1980, would have been just before I started my senior year of high school, and obviously I knew it was a movie, but the characters and the setting and the story, they really pulled it off. It really came across as believable to me, and it really was one of the scariest movies for me. So it's my favorite one of the franchise. Again, it's the first one. It's much like the Star Wars movies. The very first released Star Wars movie is still my all-time favorite Star Wars movie, and it just has a lot to do with who I was as a person at the time, and just my life, what that represented in my life at the time. So that's the same with this franchise. Even though some people might argue that this is not the best movie in this franchise, same with the Star Wars movies. That's how I see it, and that's how I feel about it. But I think it's one of the best horror films ever made, and it's just loads of fun. So if you go into it with the right attitude, I think you will enjoy it as well. And seeing it on the big screen just made it that much scarier for me. So I present to you the original Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th.
Did you know that a young boy drowned here?
I've had this dream. I'm in a thunderstorm, and it's raining really hard. It sounds like pebbles when it hits the ground. I try to block out the sound with my hands, only it doesn't work. It just keeps getting louder and louder. Then the rain turns to blood.
It's just a dream.
His name was Jason, and today is his birthday.
This place is cursed. You're doomed if you stay here.
Are you crazy?
We ain't gonna stand for no weirdness out here.
Hello?
It's not funny anymore. Not funny at all. They're both dead. And he's still there.
So I've always wondered, I didn't think about it as much at the time, but as I've gotten older, I've always wondered, is part of the reason that was so scary to me is because I could identify with these characters because they're supposed to be, just teenage kind of kids. And yes, that was Kevin Bacon that you saw in the movie. So, getting to some trivia on this movie, it starred Betsy Palmer, Kevin Bacon, Adrian King, Harry Crosby, and obviously additional cast members. It was written by Victor Miller and Ron Kurz. The movie was filmed at Boone Camp Nobi Bosco in New Jersey. The camp is still in operation, and it has a wall of Friday the 13th memorabilia to honor the movie. The movie crew and everybody was only allowed to use that camp after making a sizable donation to the Boy Scouts of America. And while most of the cast and crew stayed at local hotels during filming, some of the most dedicated, including Tom Savini, which I didn't include in the actors, but he was there, and Tasso N. Stavrakis stayed at the actual campsite. The film earned $39,754,601 at the U.S. box office on a budget of $550,000. And its worldwide gross was $59,754,601, again, worldwide. So that was a lot of money then. It's nothing in comparison to what some of the movies earn these days, but at the time, that was a lot of money. On opening weekend, this film reportedly grossed over 10 times the production cost. Again, its production cost was $550,000. Composer Harry Manfredini came up with the now classic vocals attached to the score, and it's his voice that you hear when you hear that. It launched the acting careers of both Adrian King and Kevin Bacon. Although it was not Bacon's first film, his breakout role was as Chip Diller in National Lampoon's Animal House, one of the leaders of the villainous Omega fraternity that is bullying and fighting with the Deltas. And in between Animal House and Friday the 13th, he starred in Starting Over, as well as the 1980 superhero spoof Hero at Large that starred John Ritter. Harry Crosby, that's in the movie, is Bing Crosby's son. The working title for the script was Long Night at Camp Blood. And again, one of my favorites. Let me know if you've seen it and let me know what you think. So for this next one, let me share my backstory on this next one. This is the found footage film I referenced a couple of times now that I saw before I saw Paranormal Activity. This one was released on July 30th of 1999. I saw it in the theater with friends, so I was an adult at this point. And this is the movie that got me hooked on the found footage genre. I totally got caught up in this movie. I do think this is the first found footage movie I ever saw. That show Cops had been out for a while. You know, that Bad Boys. So that had been out for a while, and that's a found footage concept. And I don't remember liking that show because it was just so bumpy and everything is moving around so much. And when you're trying to look at the suspects and all of that stuff, maybe because the seat, you know, the spaces were so much smaller, I don't remember liking it in that setting. But for movies, I really like it. I really liked this movie. These characters, again, not famous actors, not anybody that anyone had ever heard of before, and that makes it so much more believable. Again, they were not given scripts. They had, you know, guidelines, the storyline, and I learned that they went in believing that the story behind this movie they thought was a real life story, and that it was, you know, they were making a movie about it, and then they found out later that the whole story, everything was just made up by the writers. I think it's a must-see film for anyone who's into occult supernatural content and or found footage films. And like right now, I will search. I search YouTube and I search Amazon for found footage movies. I just love that concept. I really enjoy that, and I just feel like, you know, I'm part of the characters when I'm following them around by looking through the eyes of the cameraman as he's filming everything. So found footage and occult stuff together. This was just, I hit pay dirt with this one. And the movie is, you got any guesses? Who can guess what the movie is?
Tell me where you are, John!
We're here now, hungry and cold and hunted. Just want to apologize to Mike's mom and Josh's mom and my mom. I'm gonna die out here.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Put that on your watch list, just for kicks. I'm gonna let that run a little bit more. I don't want to spoil it for where the next movie is. But let's move on to the next movie. And first, let's do some trivia about the Blair Witch Project. The Blair Witch Project starred Heather Donahue, Michael C. Williams, and Joshua Leonard, and it was written by Daniel Myrick, Eduardo Sanchez, and Heather Donahue. Heather Donahue's mother, this is part of the trivia I learned. Heather Donahue's mother actually began receiving sympathy cards because people thought her daughter had really died. This film was in the Guinness Book of World Records for top budget box office ratio. So again, that whole return on investment concept for a mainstream feature film. The film cost $60,000 to make and made $240 million, a ratio of $1 spent for every 10,000 made. It's included among the American Film Institute's 2001 list of 400 movies nominated for the top 100 most heart-pounding American movies. So, and this movie, at the end of this movie, I remember almost trembling the way the movie ends. It's so eerie, and it was, these actors just really seemed genuinely terrified by what was happening in the film. It was amazing. It took 8 days to shoot the film, and the final day of shooting happened on Halloween night. The crew had planned on wrapping up one night before, but the camera had run out of batteries due to the camera light. I guess they left the camera light on, requiring an additional day of shooting. So one of the creepiest parts of this film are the sounds of, and it does, in the film it sounds like sticks breaking or crunching, something walking on sticks that are breaking, and it happens at multiple times in the film, and it's so creepy. It gets creepier and creepier the more into the movie you get. And the trivia for that is that the crackling sounds in the woods were made by the directors and their assistants walking up to the camp's perimeter, breaking sticks, and then tossing them in various directions. It's so, isn't that interesting that the atmosphere of fear that was created in this film could make something like that, something so benign, just even more terrifying, and just it enhanced the feelings that you have watching the movies. The actors were given no more than a 35-page outline of the mythology behind the plot before shooting began. All lines were improvised, and nearly all the events in the film were unknown to the three actors beforehand. They were often on camera. Those were often on-camera surprises to them all. The woman on the street. So there's a scene where they're interviewing this lady. Their characters are interviewing this lady to get background on the myth, the Blair Witch myth. And the woman on the street telling her account of the Blair Witch and the events in Burkittsville, which is where all of this was supposed to be taking place, which it did take place. It was filmed there. It was just a random woman that the actors came across on the street. She made up the entire story on the spot, and after filming, the directors tried with no success to find the woman to get her to sign a release form. And to not have been cast in that role, it's great. You got to see it. The sign scene, so at the beginning of the movie, there's a sign, showing that they're going into Burkittsville, and the sign that you see, which was the real sign for driving into Burkittsville, at the beginning of the movie has been stolen multiple times, one of those times being the opening night of the movie. Miramax, which was the studio behind Paranormal Activity, passed on the opportunity to acquire and distribute the Blair Witch Project. The decision was made by executive Jason Blum, who didn't think the movie would be a hit. Blum later became famous for producing another extremely profitable found footage horror film, Paranormal Activity, in 2007, and then Artisan Entertainment acquired that movie for distribution for just $1.1 million. That's a steal, again, given how much money Paranormal Activity made. All right, next up on the list. So this is not one that I saw at the movie theater. Let me read you the backstory for it. It was released on April 7th of 1951, and it's among the first movies I remember watching as a child. So would have seen it on TV. And again, we didn't even have a TV till I was about 8 years old, so I'm going to guess it was, I'm still elementary school when I saw this movie, and it really impacted me. At this point, I was already very much interested in reading sci-fi books and stuff, and we already, again, watched a lot of Dracula and things like that. This came out the same year as the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still, the original Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951, which is, FYI, it's not a horror film. It is the number one and always has been the number one, my favorite movie of all time. The Day the Earth Stood Still. So I think I probably saw both of those around the same time, because they, were probably on TV around that time, since they were more than, 15 years old or whatever. So this movie that we're about to watch the little trailer for is a great blending of like sci-fi and monster movie and horror movie, only because it's really scary, but it's not like blood and guts and people being eaten alive or anything like that. And I used to be able to see this, so back in the old original cable days, Turner Classic Movies and places like that would show this movie relatively often. But then I stopped seeing it anywhere, so I purchased a digital copy on Amazon Prime. So I've always got my copy of it. Haven't watched it in a while, so I think I'm probably going to have a binge fest at some point and go back and watch all of these movies just back to back to back just for kicks. Maybe I should have done that before today, but I wanted this to be more of just what my recollections were and not based so much on I just saw this movie and here's what I thought. So I always have access to that now. It was remade in 1982. Kurt Russell starred in it, and I've seen that one. I like that one. It's a little bit different, but the same story for the most part. But again, since this was the first one, and because of when I saw it and just who I was as a human at the time, it really stuck with me. And we'll do a little trivia again after that. I just want to point out that it's always fascinated me to consider how people back during this time, so the 50s, so like golden age of sci-fi stuff, the late 50s, that's my favorite old sci-fi B-film era, and you look at some of it and it's so cheesy and it's so unrealistic, and yet I love considering that when audiences went to the movie theaters to see these movies, they were as horrified at the time, they were just as frightened at the time as those of us who might go see movies today with all the CGI and, you know, just virtual reality stuff that's out there now. Which it's kind of sad to think of that, because it's like, you know, as we get more knowledgeable and sophisticated, it takes more and more to elicit the same kind of responses, like a drug, like a tolerance for a drug. So this is a great movie because it's before all of that CGI stuff, and you know, you get a good editor still and you can pull off a lot of things, but it just always has been a favorite of mine. I'm guessing none of you will have guessed what this one is, unless you understand the Kurt Russell reference.
That thing's alive, sir. I saw it, I shot at it, I hit it, I know it. Nothing happened. It just kept coming at me, making a noise like a cat doing. Captain, it was awful.
Here's how we handled panic back in the old days.
You've got to do something about it, you've got.
Is it human or inhuman? Earthly or unearthly? Baffling questions, astounding questions that not even the world's greatest scientific minds can answer.
Gentlemen, do you realize what we've found? A being from another world as different from us as one pole from the other. We can only communicate with it. See?
What happened, Doctor?
In the greenhouse, I was working. I couldn't see.
Yeah.
Then a blast of cold air, and I heard Olsen scream.
Come here. Get in the corner. Now hold this in front of you. Stay by the light switch.
1.9. Needles hit the top.
Anybody seen that movie? Has anyone seen that? Is it on your list of favorite movies? I love those old 50s sci-fi movies. So now some trivia on The Thing, which was named The Thing and then From Another World was added to it, I read somewhere, because Howard Hawks didn't want people to confuse it and think it had something to do with a song that was out at the time called The Thing. I don't know that song. But it starred Kenneth Tobey, Margaret Sheridan, and James Arness. That's James Arness of Gunsmoke fame. He was Matt Dillon on the old long-running Gunsmoke show. And it was written by Charles Lederer, John W. Campbell Jr., and Howard Hawks. So in real life, the skeleton crew at the South Pole Telescope Station have a tradition every winter over of watching this movie and the other two adaptations on the very first night after the departure of the final plane of the season. So I didn't even know there were two adaptations of this one. I only knew of that Kurt Russell thing. It was partially filmed in Glacier National Park and at a Los Angeles ice storage plant. The latter was used to show the actors' breath condensing in the cold in interior shots that was one special effect that Hollywood never successfully accomplished. That was one special effect that Hollywood never successfully accomplished. The directors Ridley Scott, John Frankenheimer, Tobe Hooper, and John Carpenter all cited this movie as a key influential film in their lives. Carpenter famously readapted the film into The Thing in 1982, making The Thing a shapeshifter like it was in the original novel. A prequel of the same name, The Thing, in 2011, detailing the Norwegian team finding the crashed ship buried in the ice and the events that transpired prior to The Thing making it to the American outpost. Oh, so I'll have to look that up. James Arness reportedly regarded his role as so embarrassing that he didn't even attend the premiere. He complained that his Thing costume made him look like a giant carrot. He was 6 feet 6 inches tall. Also included among the American Film Institute's 2001 list of the top 100 most heart-pounding American movies. So we saw that reference for one of the other films we've covered today. And while there are 11 credited actors in the film, there are 14 uncredited stuntmen in the film. I thought that was interesting. Okay, so now we're down to the last two, and these are definitely in my top favorite, most scary movies. You know, these don't have anything to do with Halloween in and of themselves, except that people associate Halloween with spooky stuff and scary stuff, and so that's why I thought I'd do a review of some of my favorite scary movies. So let me give you the backstory on this one. So I only have one real thing that I think I would call a phobia. I might have to look up what a phobia really is, but the only thing I am really afraid of is being underwater. Believe it or not. I'm not afraid of snakes, you guys know that. I'm not afraid of spiders, you things know that. So some of the common stuff that people, you know, are afraid of, some common phobias, they don't bother me, they don't faze me at all. But being underwater, that's been my whole life. I've been just almost terrified of being underwater. And that was really sad because the first time I ever went to Cancun, it was with a group of friends. This was back in the late 90s. And we went snorkeling. And if you've been to Cancun, I guess anywhere there at the Yucatan Peninsula, the water is so beautiful and perfectly clear, and you can see everything and the reefs and all the marine animals. And so we go snorkeling. It was my first time to go snorkeling, again, because I don't like being under the water anyway. And all my friends are diving down. Like, I didn't even know till that trip you can dive with the snorkeling thing. So they're diving down and getting close to all the stuff we could see. And I'm just there on the surface of the water with my face in the water. Not even my head underwater, just my face in the water, hyperventilating, and just so terrified that it was not nearly as enjoyable as it should have been for me. It's really ironic because I love the ocean. I love water in general. I love the sound of water. I love, you know, floating around in a pool. I love water, but I do not love being underwater. So this movie touched on that. And then it has the monster, you know, the monster aspect to it that was very realistic because I love the beach. So obviously the whole setting for this is at the beach and in the ocean. So I think it's safe to say that anyone watching this video has seen this movie. And if you haven't seen this movie, why have you not seen this movie? It's probably going to be on anybody's list of scary movies or favorite scary movies. Again, since this came out in the summer of 1975, it would have been just before I turned 13. I did see it in the movie theater, which made it even scarier because everything is so big. I think this put Steven Spielberg and John Williams on the map, and I'm just relatively certain you guys know what it is.
Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss, Jaws. This is Universal's extraordinary motion picture version of Peter Benchley's best-selling novel, Jaws.
You yelled shark. We've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
I just found out that a girl got killed here last week. And you knew it. You knew there was a shark out there.
What we are dealing with here is a perfect engine, an eating machine.
We're not only going to have to close the beach, we're going to have to hire somebody to kill the shark.
This shark, swallow you whole.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
That's a 20-footer.
25. 3 tons on them.
None of man's fantasies of evil can compare with the reality of Jaws.
Who hasn't seen that movie? Raise your hand if you haven't seen that movie. Let's do a little Jaws trivia now. So Jaws starred Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, and Richard Dreyfuss. Oh, I was so into Richard Dreyfuss. There was something about, he seemed kind of brainy, and he's very non-assuming. He's in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, another of my all-time favorite movies. Great sci-fi, more Steven Spielberg. And I guess you had to have a name that started with an R to be in this movie. Roy, Robert, and Richard. Peter Benchley wrote the novel, and then I'm guessing Carl Gottlieb was included as a writer because he probably helped with the screenplay. So according to writer Carl Gottlieb, Roy Scheider ad-libbed that line, "You're going to need a bigger boat." Over 67 million people in the U.S. went to see this film when it was initially released in 1975, making it the first ever summer blockbuster. Now that's a common term. So the shark in the movie was named Bruce. It's a mechanical shark, but the shark was named Bruce, and he only has 4 minutes of total screen time. 3 mechanical Bruces were made, each with specialized functions. 1 shark was open on the right side, 1 was open on the left side, and the 3rd was fully skinned. Each of those Bruces cost $250,000. Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts was used as Amity Island, primarily because even 12 miles out to sea at Martha's Vineyard, the sandy bottom of the ocean was only 30 feet down, allowing the mechanical shark to function. Residents were paid $64 to scream and run across the beach as extras. Brody's dog, so Roy Scheider's character Brody has a dog in the movie. That dog was actually Steven Spielberg's real dog, Elmer. The novel and film have been criticized for misrepresenting sharks, which in reality rarely attack humans and are overall not as vengeful as portrayed. It's kind of like, plane crashes. Air travel is very safe, but it's so catastrophic when something doesn't go right and a plane crashes and there are lots of people, typically on a plane, that it gives people sometimes the wrong idea about how safe it is to fly. So same thing is being explained here about sharks. Ichthyologist George Burgess said shark hunting surged after the release of the film, explaining there was no remorse since there was this mindset now that they were man killers. Shark populations in the eastern seaboard of North America dropped significantly after 1975. Both Peter Benchley and Steven Spielberg later regretted how Jaws ruined the reputation of sharks. Benchley said, "Knowing what I know now, I could never write that book today. Sharks don't target human beings, and they certainly don't hold grudges," and he became a shark conservationist. After filming for Jaws was completed, director Steven Spielberg said, "My next picture will be on dry land. There won't even be a bathroom scene." He was predominantly true to his word because his next film would be Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which took place on land, but there were nevertheless a couple of bathroom scenes. This movie was voted the 6th scariest film of all time by Entertainment Weekly. And now we're moving to the last movie on my list, which it deserves the last spot as being among the most terrifying. This, wow, let me get to my little backstory on this one. It was released on June 23rd of 1979, so just shy of my 17th birthday. And when I look back, I think the 70s and 80s, maybe early 80s, I think 70s were great for horror movies. Part of that is, again, because CGI wasn't as much of a factor in what happened. Some great editors that could pull off a lot of what CGI does today, but just a lot of really scary movies that didn't depend on computer, virtual reality stuff. Good cast, good story, good actors that really knew how to act afraid so that you would feel afraid. So this movie is at the top, or very near the top of my list for that reason. A great cast, and a terrifying setting. It happens in space, so there's nowhere to go. You can't move. You can't get in your car and get away or escape. You're trapped. So that's part of where the fear comes from. And then an unbelievably awful monster in it. Anybody guess what this is yet? It's mostly sci-fi, and I mean, I consider it a horror movie because it's definitely got some horrifying scenes in it. I guess it could be in the thriller category also. A lot of hold your breath moments, a lot of gasping. It's also part of a franchise, but this is the first one. It's my one true love in the franchise, and it deserves, again, a top spot for me. It has a cat in it. He's kind of a primary character, and so the animal lover in me sympathized with the cat and, identified with the cat a lot. It's beautifully shot. Everything about this movie is perfection. And without having the same access again to special effects and computer-generated stuff, it's just amazing to me what they were able to put on the screen for, moviegoers. And you didn't have to suspend your disbelief to see this one. This really came across as being totally possible and totally horrifying, again, because of where it's happening and who it's happening to. Let's see, what else do I have here? This should give it away right here. This introduced me to Sigourney Weaver. I think this is probably considered her breakout role. She was perfect for the role. And let's see, I have a note here about it being different compared to a lot of things that I had seen before. It's not even that it's like a fast-paced, frantic kind of a movie. There's a lot of, again, heart-pounding stuff in it, and when you watch the little trailer, it looks like there's lots of running. They're trying to get away from the monster, and yet they're trying to be quiet about it as well so that the monster can't find them. So it's primarily sci-fi, so I love that, and it's visually stunning and an amazing story. This is 1979's Alien. my all-time favorite movies. Let me get myself back on the screen now. And let's do a little trivia about Alien. So Alien starred Sigourney Weaver, Tom Skerritt, a very young and handsome Tom Skerritt. Did you catch that? There's one little scene there where he's like wearing a headset and it looks like he's looking at a computer monitor or something. John Hurt, Harry Dean Stanton, Veronica Cartwright, Ian Holm, the Bilbo Baggins from the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Yaphet Kotto, and this is the one-time role of Bolaji Badejo, who played the monster, because he's 6 feet 10 inches tall and just very slim with long arms. The writers were Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett. And getting to some trivia, Sir Ridley Scott cites 3 movies as the shaping influences on Alien. Let me pull my little notes better where I can see them. And those 3 movies were Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, my favorite Star Wars, 2001 and 2001 A Space Odyssey from 1968 for their depiction of outer space, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974 for its treatment of horror. The original cut of this movie ran 3 hours and 12 minutes. Guess who turned down the role of Captain Dallas?
Where does it end?
No, I don't want to see you again. Guess who turned down the role of Captain Dallas in this movie? Harrison Ford. Sir Ridley Scott did all of the handheld camera work himself. I think I've learned that that's not even allowed anymore for the directors to do the camera work. The reason for most of the movie having handheld shots was down to the close confines of the sets. Tracks and dolly movements were too fast or too wide, so they were replaced with handheld instead. This was the first R-rated movie to receive a tie-in series of toys marketed to children. I still remember that little alien figure. You know, like, it wasn't even Barbie doll sized. Little action figure. To get Jones the cat, I think she refers to him as Jonesy a lot in the movie. To get Jones the cat to react fearfully to the descending alien, a German Shepherd was placed in front of him with a screen between them, so the cat wouldn't see it at first. And then the screen was suddenly removed to make Jones stop advancing and start hissing. The first day that she shot a scene involving Jones the cat, Sigourney Weaver's skin started reacting badly. Horrified, the young actress immediately thought that she might be allergic to cats and that it would be easier for the production to recast her instead of trying to find 4 more identical cats. As it transpired, Weaver was reacting to glycerin that was sprayed on her skin to make her look hot and sweaty. 4 different cats did play the role of Jones. Oh, here's a little tidbit. Shredded condoms were used to create the tendons of the beast's ferocious jaws. If you have not seen the monster in this, just look that up even. Just do a little Google search for, the alien from Alien. The chest bursting scene, an iconic movie moment. Whether you've seen the movie or not, you very likely have seen something that shows the alien bursting out of the character's chest. The chest bursting scene was considered the second scariest movie moment of all time on Bravo's 100 Scariest Movie Moments in 2004. According to Yaphet Kotto, Sir Ridley Scott told him to annoy Sigourney Weaver off camera so that there would be genuine tension between their characters. Kotto said he regretted this because he really liked Weaver. So there's lots more trivia. You can, again, go to imdb.com. You can always learn about movies and their history and backstory and the characters and actors in it. If there's something that is on your favorite movies list. Again, I might do a little binge session and see how many of these I can find to watch. I know a lot of them are available on Amazon Prime. Only 1 or 2 of them I can watch with my Prime membership. The other ones you'd have to pay, like $3 or $4 to rent them, but I still think that might be something fun to do. So leading up to Halloween, I might have a couple days where I go back and rewatch some of these. So check these out. Again, let me know in the comments what you think. Thanks for joining me today. I hope this was fun for you. I had a fun time doing it, and you know, I'm not necessarily looking for content. I always have content ideas for videos, but finding the time to record is still a little bit of a challenge. So I feel very accomplished to have put this together for you to share on the channel. I hope to see you again soon. Be safe, be happy, be well, be blessed. I love you guys, and that does it for today.